Hello, it's Nicole and welcome to my channel. As a part of a series that I've been doing on getting to know colors and your different mediums, we've been doing a lot of swatching. In this video, we'll do some more swatching. This time we'll be using different sprays and paints. All right, in this first demonstration, we'll be doing the Distress Oxides by Tim Holtz and Ranger. And as you may know, the Oxides have a bit of a chalky finish to them, which means that they do work on black cardstock. I considered doing all of my swatches in both white and black, but after I did a few, I realized that it probably wasn't necessary. I tend to get a consistent look with it, and figured that if I ever want to use it on dark cardstock, I'll just test it first. It's more important to be able to see the color on white cardstock so I can see what the true color looks like. So I'll just be sticking to white swatches from here on out. If you choose to do dark swatches, that's totally up to you. So as you can see, I have a few swatches already done, and I have my Distress Oxides over here. So we're going to move on to one more Distress Oxide. We'll be doing Wild Honey. And I have my swatch cards already set up. So this is just white cardstock. And I've been using some leftover washi tape to leave an open spot at the top of my card. So this way I can add my label and it looks all nice and neat. So I'm just going to take a piece of washi tape and cover up the top here. It gets me a nice crisp line right across that bottom. And I do have my splat box here to make sure that I don't get splatter all over the place, and a piece of paper toweling inside. Now with your Distress Oxides, you always want to make sure that the agitator ball is loose in there and that you can hear it shaking around. So once you have it shook up enough, all you need to do is spray on here a couple of times, enough to get a nice saturation of color, and then maybe to see what it looks like when it's not quite fully saturated. So now that I have my card sprayed, it dries pretty quickly. I just need to go ahead and take off my washi tape here. And I have my sample. I'll let this dry a little bit, and then we'll come back and add the label in a few minutes. The next spray I'm doing is the Distress Ink Spray, and this is just a plain ink. It does not have the Oxide in it. So this first one here is in Crackling Campfire, and I also have my Mustard Seed Spray Stain. So same as before, I've added a piece of washi tape to one of my styled swatch cards, and these don't need to be shook up necessarily. I do always just give them just a little bit of a shake though to make sure that the ink is all suspended properly, and then just a couple spritzes to give me an idea of what this is going to look like. Again, I'll just go ahead and pull off my washi tape, and there's our sample. It just needs, again, a minute or two to dry, and then I'll be able to put my label on it. For my next set of swatches, I'll be doing the Distress Paints. And again, these work well on both light and dark colors. Is it worth doing a swatch on a dark color? I don't know. So at this point, again, I'm just going to focus on doing swatches on the light colors so that I can truly get an idea of what it looks like. And then as I have a need or desire to do painting on darker colors, I'll go ahead and test a swatch before I move forward with the project. So on this one, I've got the Rustic Wilderness Distress Paint, and then I'm going to demonstrate here Crackling Campfire. If you didn't know, the Distress Paints do also have an agitator ball in them. If you have a new bottle of Distress Paint, you're going to want to open this up and take off the protective cover off the top of the paint. It's not only plastic wrapped, but it has a little protective cover in there. So the first thing I will do is go ahead and put a few little dots of the paint on my cardstock. This is, again, just plain white cardstock. I haven't done any kind of watercolor paper or anything like that. And now I'm going to add a little bit of water to water it down and get a look at what it looks like when it is in a lighter shade. So I can pull that right up to my washi tape because that's going to help protect and keep a nice clean line there. Now I have an idea of what this looks like. Now, distress paints as well as distress sprays and the distress inks and things like that is really a water reactive ink. So you can spray it with water and get some different looks. Just like this piece here, I sprayed it with some water so I could see what that would look like when I have it sprayed. You can do this with all of your swatches to get more of an idea of what the oxidation will look like when you're working with an oxide and how it will leave watermarks when you do this with regular distress ink. So as this dries, you're going to see that there are some water spots in here that it left behind, and that's a really good idea of exactly how this paint is going to work when you go ahead to use it in a real project. So again, just go ahead and pull off my washi tape here, and I've got a nice clean spot to put my label and a beautiful swatch that will be fantastic for working out different color combos for projects. The next type of swatches I'll do are the distress crayons. Now these are a water reactive pigment ink, and I've started swatching this set here. So I'll go for the next color, which is Pine Needles. And as you can see, I've got 2 of them done here. This is on watercolor cardstock. And what I'm doing here is extending the crayon, putting a little bit on my palette, and then activating that with some water, as well as my card. So my watercolor card here has a little bit of water on it, and I've got my crayon over here that I am diluting in some water. And I don't want those big chunky bits. I might grab some of those later if I need to make this a little bit more saturated. But then I'm just going to go ahead and take my little brush here and start on the left side and add some of that color. I'm not going back into the color here. I'm going to work my way all the way to the right and let the color fade out naturally. This will give me a good idea of how it looks in a light application versus a darker application. Here are a few more watercolor mediums that you may decide to swatch. These are the watercolor brush markers, and I like to put out a little dollop of color onto a palette so I can get a controlled amount of ink here. And then I've got my swatch already in place and a little bit of water on it, so I can go ahead and take my color and again start on the left side as a more saturated look and then let it fade off to the right so I can see what that looks like as I desaturate that color. Similar to the watercolor brushes are the liquid watercolors. These are by Pink Fresh, and this is a pigment-based translucent watercolor. So I'm going to shake this up and go ahead and just put out 1 drop of color. A little goes a long way, definitely, with these. So again, I'll go ahead and spray my card and get a little bit of water going here with my watercolor. Start on the left and then work my way to the right to see how this fades out. If I'm getting a little too much saturation, I can wipe off my brush, come back, and pull up a little bit of that ink to make sure that I get a nice gradation. Another popular watercolor medium is the watercolor pencil. These are the Woodless watercolor pencils by Altenew. And I'll start by spraying my swatch. And then I'm going to take my pencil and put it right in the water to get this nice and saturated. I'll get some water on my brush, and then I'll go directly from the brush to the pencil so that I get it nice and loaded up. Then I can go again from left to right. And if this doesn't appear dark enough, I can grab a little bit more There we go, that's a little more saturated. And then again, take that all the way across. Until it fades out. And the last medium that I have here is the traditional pan set. I pre-wet my set here and go ahead and grab some of this color here. This is Warm and Cozy. And I'll just put this on my palette. Again, I'll go ahead and spray my card and start with that concentrated color on the left and work my way right. This, it's typical to have a lot of ink, so go ahead and feel free to wipe off your brush, come back in and work the rest of the way across to get that faded color. Once my swatches are all dry, I go ahead and add on the printed label that I've created for them. I'm doing all of the labels at once, so I have all of the distress paint labels, whether I have this color or not. That means that I have an easy way to inventory and see what colors I would like to acquire. And I can also just have them ready to go, so when I get a paint color, I can swatch it and not have to worry about waiting to print out a label. So I have these all split up into kind of their color families, and they're going to go right here into my swatch catalog. In my catalog, I have all of my cardstocks, and I've started putting in all of my specialty papers that match that particular hue, as well as my stamping inks. So I've got some Concord and Ninth inks in here as well. And I've got all of my colors, so red, red, orange, orange, yellow, etc. And I'll go ahead and look through all of these and decide what hues they really go with. So this is truly a red set. So I've got Worn Lipstick. Abandoned Coral actually looks quite red. It may go into the red-orange group a little better though, so I'll set that aside. And then I have Festive Berries and Barn Door. And I think all three of these really fit in the red category. So I'm just going to pop them right here with the rest of my reds. Then I've got Red Orange, and I've got Ripe Persimmon and Abandoned Coral. I think these guys will fit perfectly in here. So I'm going to pop these in the back of my orange group, or my red orange group. Then I have Orange, and Crackling Campfire is probably going to fit best in the orange category. So I'll pop those in there. I've got Wild Honey, which is much more of a yellow orange compared to Mustard Seed, which is definitely a yellow. So I'll pop that in there. Then I've got this Rustic Wilderness. I'm going to put this under the greens. Actually, I'm going to put this under the yellow greens because it does kind of have a yellowish hue to it, and it really matches with a lot of these other colors I've got in my swatch section here. And then finally, I have Pine Needles here, and this is definitely going to go under, I think it's going to go under the blue-green section here. It could go under the green section as well. Let's put it under green. So as you can see, my swatch collection is growing. I've got all sorts of different colors in here, and now that I do, I can take that concept and start creating projects with all of my colored swatches. So if I wanted to do a complementary project with red and green, I could pull out my reds and my greens and figure out what I want to use. Do I want to use this beautiful glitter paper? That looks pretty awesome. I can pair that with blush for a really fun contrasting project. Or perhaps I want to just go monochromatic and pick out a few shades of green that will work well with it. Maybe I want to use this Barn Door Distress Crayon, and I'm going to pair it with some cardstock, say this Sea Glass from Concord and Ninth. So now that I have all of my colors together and I can see all of the different things that I have in these particular hues, it really helps me to come up with lots of very cohesive projects because I have all of these swatches at my fingertips. I hope you've enjoyed this look into how you can swatch some of your other colored mediums and how your swatch catalog comes together to create a beautiful, comprehensive tool to make amazing coordinated projects. I'll be back soon with more color tricks for you, but until next time, happy crafting. Help support my craft education efforts by giving this video a thumbs up and clicking on the subscribe button and bell so you'll get notified when I create new content just for you. If you're looking for some more crafty inspiration, how about one of these videos?